And all the windows are boarded up. But, yep.
That's where you used to work.
Yeah, and the red part of it. The front part was the lounge. And
that was the movie
business
theater right
office.
back there.
Yeah, that was what Grandpa Hoff built that.
Built the movie theater.
Yes. You didn't know that?
We should drive back.
Your mother's great-grandpa Hoff. Your great-great-grandpa Hoff built that theater and run it for a while.
He ran it too, not only built it, but ran it.
No, he ran it. And then when he sold it, the guy couldn't come up with enough money, so the guy gave him tickets so they could go to the movie. But Grandpa Hoff was not a good businessman. You know, wasn't tough enough to go after people.
I think they stopped too soon ago.
Yeah. It's 4-way.
That's where I used to have, there used to be a bank there.
Yeah, Uncle Mimi had
That's
there.
where my money was. Back in the day.
Still going straight?
No, it's right there.
Oh, right there.
And back in the day, that next tech building was the post office. And I walked down to every day. That's my senior year. Because this is the old theater.
Are you getting anything? Hello.
Right here.
That red.
That red. And that door is actually the door where we used to go in.
Right.
To see the movies.
Yeah, I remember. I'm pretty sure that's where I saw Annie.
Probably. Yeah.
So.
It is now part of the furniture store.
So your
But Grandpa Hoff, my Grandpa Hoff, built that building and run the theater. He brought the theater to Plainville.
I'll be darned.
Uh-huh.
So this would have been her mother's dad. Hoff. Her mother's maiden name.
And this actually, there's nothing there. We lived right here. The empty lot. There used to be a trailer there. But we lived in a rock house. Here.
Another freebie house of Hilgers?
No. And why we were actually kicked out of that house. I remember this house. Yes, I remember that night very clearly. Probably because it was.
Are you filming her?
It frightened me. But we were praying. We always had evening prayers together as a family.
Yeah.
And we were praying, and it was night. And I looked up and saw some lights turning into our drive. And, you know, somebody came to the door, and Dad answered it. And it was the owners, and they said that we had to move. But I can't remember whether they had a reason why we had to move, whether they had some family coming to town and wanted, or maybe the folks didn't pay the rent. I have no, because they lived in so many houses around here. It made me wonder.
They were getting kicked out because they couldn't pay the rent.
I don't have any idea, but I remember that so plainly. And then I remember when Dad took us out to show us where we were going to live, and oh my gosh. It had been, nobody had lived in that house for a while. It had no paint. It was gray. Weeds taller than my head.
On the outside it was gray.
On the outside. You went in and it was, you know, pretty
bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys had to clean it all up. And so how old was you then?
I was 5. I'm pretty sure I was 5.
So Betty would have been
13. Betty was in the 8th grade.
Because Betty got married young, right?
No, Betty was. I think Betty was 21.
Oh, she was 21. Okay. Sometimes when they talk, you know, when your siblings all get together and they start talking.
Although Rosie
it's hard
was,
to tell.
we thought Rosie was going to be an old maid because she. I think Rosie may have been older than that. She may have been 22 or so.
And Rosie married somebody who wasn't Catholic.
Right.
Which I didn't really know, because Uncle Dwayne never really, I mean, I never would have guessed that.
Right.
I mean, because
But he never went to church with them.
No, but like when he would have been in church when I would have been around him, like at their weddings, you know, all
Yeah,
the kids'
right,
weddings.
right.
It's not like he didn't attend those.
No.
So for me, I would have known.
And then for a while he was going with Rosie later, but now that he's got his cancer, Rosie said he's going back to the Christian church pretty regularly. So yeah.
So you guys had evening prayer, because really,
Yes,
prayer was something to do too. I mean, that sounds bad, but
it was part of our routine.
yeah. But
And I'm not saying as a kid, and I told this to my CCD classes, it wasn't something as a kid I looked forward to, especially during Lent, because we said a whole rosary. The other nights we knelt and we said a Hail Mary and Our Father, a Glory Be, Apostles' Creed, Act of Faith, Act of Hope, and Act of Love, and the Sweetest Jesus Prayer. I think that was our routine. And we knelt.
through the whole thing.
Generally by a chair turned around backwards, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we knelt when we prayed, yeah. And then during Lent, we said the Rosary, and
all in addition to all the others.
in addition. Well, we probably didn't say the Hail Mary, Our Father, and Glory Be. We said the Rosary and then the other ones. Oh, and the Angel of God prayer. And my station that I had to lead, my decade I had to lead was the second decade, and we said the sorrowful mysteries all through Lent. So the only mystery I ever knew was the scourging at the pillar.
Because that was the one you led.
Because that was the one I.
Well, I was just trying to say that prayer gave you guys something to do because you didn't have TV.
Right, but it couldn't have lasted very long.
No.
If you were, or maybe we.
You had radio, right, at a certain
Yeah,
time.
but we didn't really, Grace. We were so poor.
Yeah.
I remember, back the first radio had this huge battery in it, and of course we couldn't afford to get a new battery.
Right.
Then we got a big upright, and I remember that must have been electric. But I don't remember playing very much. I remember listening to ball games. That was in the living room, and I'd go and I'd turn it and put my ear up against it to listen to the Yankees play ball. Because the folks' bedroom was off that living room, and, some nights I was there and they were in bed, and I was listening to the ball game. Play ball.
Yeah. Well, you probably didn't play the radio because that would have been, you had to pay for electricity then.
I don't remember having,
Yeah.
So that's why we read a lot, I think. But anyway, and there was a pear tree, probably about where that tree is, but I don't think that's a pear tree. And I remember going and eating those pears off that pear tree before they were ripe, my gosh. And that's why I like green pears to this day.
Oh, there you go. Now we know.
But that's where they live.
Mm-hmm. You don't know Ballheart.
That's the only, 2 houses I actually lived in. No, I did live in I wasn't born in that house. I wasn't born. They moved to that house after I was born. But I don't remember which one Rosie and Betty said I was born in. But they lived in a lot of houses in Plainville.
It does make you wonder if they were skipping around.
When they came back from South Dakota, they lived outside of town. I couldn't find that now, but that's Mark. That Sunday Mark took us around, and Betty and Rose said, yeah, that's where they lived. It was outside of town, east of town a little ways. And then they lived at one time and lived down by the S&W someplace, and they lived in a greenhouse over here, and then they lived in a White House.
So why did they
down more toward where the bank was? And
did they come to Plainville because there was family here already? I mean, if Grandpa Hoff built the theater.
No, Grandpa Hoffs would have been out. I think they would have been going. No, maybe they weren't. I don't know.
I mean, why'd they settle
They were here growing up. Dad and Mom both grew up here, but you know they couldn't. They went after they married. They went to South Dakota because his older brother Pete was in South Dakota and said there were jobs.
Gotcha.
So they went, and Dad did have a job there. And the first, you know, the two older girls were born in South Dakota.
Betty and Rosie?
Betty and Rosie were, I think both Betty and Rosie were born in South Dakota. But then the filling station that Dad worked at went under. So
they moved.
They come back. They had a very, very rough time. Mom told the story of, you know, she used to make bread every day. And the one day she was making bread in this one house, maybe it was out there, and the ceiling fell down. The cement fell down on her bread, and she had nothing to feed her kids before she put them to bed.
Because the break got ruined.
Mm-hmm. And Dad used to, you know, shoot rabbits and stuff for them to eat.
They were poor.
Mm-hmm.
Poor.
But, you know, and then, like I said, they lived so many different places. Now it makes me think they didn't pay their rent and they got kicked out, but it was never said that way, so I don't know.
And then they got a benefactor.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I...
Well, Dad started, you know, because I don't know. He was working for Champlin. So I don't know how he got the job for Champlin, but I do think he was working for Champlin when we lived here in town. But, you know, we were poor, so he hunted for work on Saturdays because he only worked 5 days a week for Champlin out by the Saline River. And so he must have heard that, you know, Johnny Hilders was looking for a farmhand or whatever.
Right.
So he was working for him, and when he'd take his vacation, Dad had, you know, like 2 weeks vacation from the oil company that he worked for. He would work those 2 weeks helping. He usually took it during harvest, I think.
Oh, gotcha.
So, yeah.
Because at least after he started working for him, there was, you guys stayed longer in houses.
Right. Johnny Hilders, his name was John too. We call him Johnny. Johnny Hilders was a religious man. He was a Nazarene, but he was very religious, and he was one of the few farmers that kept the Lord's Day holy even during harvest.
Really?
He would not, you know, after a while he had custom cutters come in. I remember when they had the old pull behind combines, and those were his. But after, you know, they start getting the self-propelled, he just went to custom cutters, and he would pay his custom cutters on Sunday, but would not let them work.
Huh, be darned. Well, you know, I always hoped the man was religious the way he...
Yes.
I mean, to hear you guys talk, in my mind, you know, he was doing that out of the
right,
goodness of his heart.
Yeah.
Know, he had to have been, to some
right,
degree.
Right.
You know, your family was pretty large and...
Right.
You know, one income. So...
Yeah.
Had to have been doing it.
Yeah. So...
But then...
And he was one of the few... You know, a lot of Protestant men don't go to church on Sunday, just the women and the children.
Yeah.
But he went to church over Sunday.
But they left that house. I mean, Grandpa died, right?
Uh-huh.
While they were still in that house.
Right, and then the son. kick Grandma out.
Right. Yeah. The son was not as.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, not that she should have been living out there by herself, probably anyway. But that's how she ended up.
I
coming to the
think what he
apartment.
wanted was one of his sons to live there. I think maybe one of his sons moved in shortly after she moved out.
Yeah. But you said she was what, 70?
She was 70, I believe, because she lived up here 16 years, and she died when she was 86, so she had to have been 70 when she moved in here. I was trying to think when Dad died. Dad died in 85.
We should drive by that apartment. You guys would have been in it, but not very much when you were so young.
I
We
think
should go by her
Grandma
apartment.
Crowley died in 84, and my dad died in 11 months to the day later.
Right. I remember that going to a lot of funerals. There's another relative that died around that time too.
Because Grandma Crowley died on the 6th of December, and Dad died the next November the 6th. So he died in 85. So Mom would have moved in there of December of 85, and she was 70.
Passed away shortly after Ethan was born.
Yeah, that week, wasn't it?
Well, we came back to visit her,
Yeah.
but that was in October.
She died in October, Grace.
I know. He was a month old. And then she died the week after we came. Or right after.
I don't know. I think she died on Wednesday.
Because the story is, your grandma Thummel,
Yeah.
my great grandma, held me and she died. And then
She died the next day.
Yeah.
We took her.
his grandma Thummel did it too. Great grandma Thummel.
It was. I'm pretty sure we took her up. Maybe it was after your baptism. We went up to show you to Grandma Thummel, my Grandma Thummel, and I'll never forget. She looked at you and said, "Oh, finally a baby that looks like me." And I think it was because you had blonde hair. You know, was it dark? Because I don't think Grandma. I think as white as Grandma's hair went, and as soon it had to have been blonde. Dad, we asked our dad, but he didn't remember. And then she died the next day. And she wasn't ill. I mean, she went fast.
She lived in 13.
Yeah,
She did. Because we used to park on the road. And she'd walk out.
I swear that's still her green chair sitting out there, but maybe it ain't.
She'd walk out so she could get in the car easier. If we parked on the curb. But 13.
Yeah, once I got my Bronco,
Yeah.
she'd walk. I'd park there and she'd walk on the sidewalk.
Do you know they're coming out with the Bronco again?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had. I think I had my bridal shower was in that.
Yeah.
In there.
Community
Or in the
building.
casino building?
Uh-huh.
We had a couple things in there, and then
Yeah.
Mom got. She felt like they were thinking we messed it up or something. So, whatever.
Yeah. Anyway.
Quit.
Yeah. 13.
So unlucky number.
She was there a long time. 16 years. His income.